What's happening, folks? This is your resident master of education here, the educator. Today, we're going to be looking at some parkour spots, or a parkour spot, and different areas in the spot. Things to kind of look for in a parkour spot. Before we get into that, though, we are going to look at how to find a parkour spot in the first place. A good place to start is always Googling parkour in your local area, and you'll be surprised what you might find. So for instance, if I search parkour spots in Maine, you'll find the Maine Warrior Gym, where I coach out of, and you might also find local events too. Image searches are always valuable for parkour because you actually get to see some of the spots and other links to other things. So for instance, if I click on this one here, is a jam that we led through a meetup page. A meetup is also a really good spot to look up for free events too, if you're looking to connect with locals and meet others who share your passion for the sport. Urban Jumpers is an awesome app that you can download on your phone, and it will show local parkour spots in your area. And the plus too is that you can also log local parkour spots in the area to the app itself, so that you can share with others cool finds that you might have found out training on your own too. Now, back to the video. You know, a lot of it kind of depends on your own personal training. You know, what you want to get out of a spot, what you want to do at the spot, right? You're going to be looking at, you know, like training safely, things like that, preparing yourself, things to look out for, potential hazards, things like that. So without further ado, let's get into it. You definitely don't need to be trespassing to find quality, good parkour spots around the area. Especially in Maine, you have access to awesome parkour spots like this one. This is a naval fort over at Southern Maine Community College called Fort Preble, and it has a ton of really cool opportunities for you to practice on. One thing you want to be thinking about though is you definitely want to check things out before you start jumping on them, because these places are old and they have walls that can crumble away like this, and you also have things that may look super sturdy like these steel beams, but if you give them a closer look, you'll see that they have rust, and they're even rusted away in certain spots to the point where their structural integrity is impaired. So make sure you're checking out for things like that before you're jumping on anything. This goes for concrete walls as well, because as we saw earlier, some of the walls are starting to crumble away because the composition of the walls is old and degraded. So make sure, you know, the hot walls sound, you know, solid and together, and there's nothing loose or hollow inside. You also want to be checking your landing zones too, as in this case we have a slight embankment on either side. So if you were to overshoot, you're going to, you know, if you're too close to the edge, you might be falling down there, which would not be fun for you. So you want to make sure that you're sticking fairly close to the higher edge, where you have enough time to be able to figure out an overshoot so that you're not falling off the edge. You also want to remove any potential hazards that might be in an undershooting zone or just around you in general, like this rusty door. Sometimes, you know, unfortunately in areas like this there can be broken glass, pretty common in urban areas, so you don't want to be falling on that. Remove that. If you see things like syringes and things, you want to stay away from those. Do not be touching those with your hands, because you don't know who's been touching them or what's been in them. And then just be mindful of any other potential hazards that you can't move, and do your best to avoid those. A walk through a new spot is always recommended to make sure things are sturdy, and you also have a contingency plan for when things go wrong. So for instance, in this set of high walls here, we got some pretty sturdy rocks, but they're pretty sporadically spaced, so you don't want to be landing in them awkwardly. You also will notice we have a pretty steep drop into shallow water over here. Generally a good idea to stay away from that side, where, you know, if you had to take a fall, you would want to go down the other side. It's still quite a drop, but at least it's flat and you can land out of that. Identifying hazards early on is really important. Especially when you're jumping to things like thin rails like this, you want to give them a good tug, maybe even a kick, to make sure that they're sturdy and safe to jump on, because one, you don't want to be breaking it,
and 2, you don't want to be breaking yourself. So make sure that they're sturdy and you're not damaging property. Wiping your shoes before a jump is typically good practice in parkour, because that's going to get any kind of dust or debris off of your shoes. Feel the surfaces that you're working with and always give them a test before you commit to any tricks, especially when you're working with inversion. Make sure that your grip underfoot is really nice and sturdy. You only need a fraction of grip, but that fraction is really important and you want to make sure you get it right. Grass at spots is always a huge plus, because whilst it's not going to feel like a crash mat, it's going to definitely be softer than concrete. So especially if you're tumbling around and doing some really high impact stuff, finding grass at spots is always a plus. Don't limit yourself to urban areas either. Natural areas also offer awesome and unique challenges that are going to make you a much more well-rounded parkour athlete.
Oh, all right, it's getting a bit cold to be outside now. But yeah, that's kind of parkour spot 101. First of all, you're allowed to be there, right? Is it a public space? If it's so, then yes. If it's not a public space, you want to be kind of careful with that. Always better to have the permission to be on there to use the space. Surfaces, always check your surfaces. Always check your surfaces. Wipe down your shoes before you do stuff. Make sure things are stable, nothing sharp. There's no trash or debris or anything anywhere in your spot that might be unsafe. Again, thank you for joining me on this journey. Next video is going to be a shoulder roll tutorial. Your basic fundamental parkour, maybe one of the most important skills that you can learn. So to stay tuned for that, be sure to subscribe as well, and hit that bell, right? Because that bell is going to notify you when the next video drops. So if you want to be on top of that and learn yourself a shoulder roll, be sure to subscribe and hit that bell. Okay? Drop a comment. What are your favorite parkour spots, right? Do you like to train more in urban spaces, natural spaces? Are you solely a gym free runner? I hope you enjoyed the video, and we'll see you next time. Again, this has been The Educator.